What is this thing they call the big dance? Leader Fan Radio Network.
Yeah, the next question. This is high-level competitive stuff here.
And KFAN.com. 1 minute, 57 seconds past the hour of 3 Central Daylight Time. Welcome back. It is a Monday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program, a brand spanking new week. Will this be the week the A-Raj watch will come to an end? This story will mercifully no longer be part of our daily discussion? I like to think so, but I no longer am sure. Might take longer than that. And guess what, Guardsy? We're in the driver's seat on this one.
The Vikings?
Yeah. We ain't waiting on A-Raj. A-Raj is waiting, presumably, on us. We hold all the cards. Remember that, was it Trump and Zelensky? You don't have any cards?
You don't have any cards. You're not in a good position right now.
A-Raj doesn't have any cards either, really. I mean, we've got the cards, right? We'll agree the Vikings have the cards?
At this point.
We have more cards than we have playoff victories in the recent past, but I digress. I'm hoping this is the week, because I'm tired of the speculation as much as anybody, but we will, I might as well get this out of the way early so that there's no confusion on it. If you're offended by the conversation continuing regarding a legitimate story, whatever you think of Rodgers, you can despise him. And I'm not going to try to take away your feelings. That doesn't mean there's not a story worth continuing to follow. And we will. So if that offends you, if that bothers you, maybe we'll see you next week. I'd rather you not go away. I'd rather you stay here. But we're going to continue to follow it until there's nothing to follow. Do you have breaking news, Sound?
I don't, but along those lines, we've taken a lot of texts to the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line 64686 about if they sign Aaron Rodgers, I'm never watching again, right? Yes. I'm done with this team.
A lot of those vows have indeed been uttered.
And I got one from a good friend of mine this weekend saying the same thing.
Spencer Tollickson?
It wasn't Spencer. Oh. No, he's a Packer fan.
He's a Packer fan anyway, yeah.
But I said, this individual texted me and basically said, are the Vikings this stupid? Would Kwesi or KOC really do this? And if they do,
I'm out.
I am done with this team.
Fraud.
I will
Can you
find
identify
out.
the individual?
I don't want to. I'd rather not. I don't think they don't need to be publicly outed. But I tried to talk them off the ledge a little bit and explain why it might make some sense and why they're thinking about it and all the things that we've talked about. But because we always think of the text line as who's texting the text line.
Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Some of them we do.
We have a suspicion in some cases, but we don't know.
But this is a good friend of mine just unloading that basically...
A fairly mild-mannered person otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty even-keeled.
Interesting. Well...
So it was interesting to have that real-life discussion.
I'm not trying to take away anybody's right to the opinion that they'd be fools to do it. That's a defensible position. And it might be the right position. That's not my argument. That's different than saying, I don't want to hear anything about this because this is stupid. Well, stupid doesn't mean it can't be a story. If you think it would be stupid for the Vikings to pursue Aaron Rodgers and end up with him, and they do, well, that's still a story. Whether you think they shouldn't. That's not my point today or any day in that regard. There's too many people who have the notion that you shouldn't be talking about this at all. And I'm here to tell you, you're going to be disappointed if that concerns you, because we will stay on it as long as it takes for it to come to some kind of logical conclusion, which most of us think probably is still that he's not going to come back here, not come here at all. But I offered as a warning to start the week, so that don't bother with the text about, I can't believe you're talking about this again. We're not going to stop talking about it until there's nothing to talk about. And too many reporters I trust have said that the story has legitimacy. So as long as the story has a legitimacy, what do we try to do it on this show? Follow it. And most of the people I will call out and say, those who say they will not watch the Vikings if Rodgers comes here, you're lying. It sounds good to say it. There's an adrenaline rush in saying it. And again, I'm not taking away your right to the position that it would be a disaster to do it. But I'm saying you're kidding yourself and you're lying to yourself. You say, I'm out. I'm out. I don't care how many years I've been following this. I'm out. We call these, what's the expression? Was it Shakespeare? Words are cheap. Did he say that first?
He may have.
William Shakespeare?
He may have said that. A lot of coaches like to say, I hear what you say, I trust what you do.
Yeah.
Or I can't hear what you say because your actions are so loud.
Some even say, if you want to get some, you got to bring some.
The best coaches have said that.
Many of the best coaches have said exactly that. A big dance commences one of the play-in games that start tomorrow.
Tomorrow and Wednesday. Yep.
By the way, my Indiana Hoosiers out.
Snubbed.
I'm not sure how good a case they have. I know there's a lot of discussion. It seems as if North Carolina is under siege.
Yes.
And, of course, the person who runs the committee is the AD at Carolina, correct?
Bubba Cunningham?
Has to be Bubba, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Of course.
From the South, it's got to be Bubba.
That's his birth name, too. It's not even.
It is?
I don't know.
It could be. It's possible in the South. You're right. I haven't done the deep dive. I know there's a couple of analytics that indicate that they have no business. North Carolina has no business getting there. Indiana, I don't have that much compassion for because they played, I think, a surprisingly soft non-conference schedule by their historical standards. That also might have done them in a little bit. But regardless, they call it the Big Dance because I think it's still big. I don't know. I mean, I'll ask, is it as big as it used to be? Beyond the draw or beyond your bracket, do we anticipate, the larger we, anticipate it the way most people around the country once did? Yes? More? I'm not sure. I don't have a good read on it. But I do admit, and we've talked about this before, I feel more disconnected from it. Anytime we're not in it, and that's often, that's frankly most of the time, we're not in it. And I'm more disconnected from it. And we've said, how many years have we said this about the NBA playoffs? I like the NBA playoffs, but if you have a team that's in it, even if they don't go that far, at least in it, but then especially if they go a ways, you feel connected to all the rest of it too, right? Because it feels like, well,
we were there.
We were there, and who would we play next? And
we might
that's
get
an interesting matchup.
A cameo and one shining moment at the end of the deal.
That's it.
Amir Coffey will be dunking.
So the Gopher men, there are two consolation tournaments for the men, correct? Or is it three?
Basically two, I think. The NIT and the Crown.
Does the CBI still exist for smaller schools?
I'm not sure.
College Basketball Invitational?
I honestly
that used
don't
to be
know.
one of my favorites.
You loved the CBI and the CIT.
Oh, there was a CIT. That's right.
Yeah, the collegeinsider.com bowl was good too.
We're not in any of them, right? We're now awaiting. I'm assuming we are awaiting the elimination of Colorado State from, yes, they're in the Big Dance because we intend, by all accounts, it appears, ready to hire the head coach there. What's his name? Nico Medved, correct?
Yes.
He's one of us.
He's from Roseville.
We have talked about that part of it before. So how complicated does it get if, let's say, they're a pretty good Cinderella story, right? There's some people who think they might be able to win a game or two. Are they in the same conference as Richard Pitino?
They are. Yes.
What happened to him in the tournament?
They lost to a
semis?
Boise State squad, that then Nico's team beat.
But they're in, right?
They're in,
New
yes.
Mexico. What seed did they get? Do we know?
They got a 12, I want to say. Good
first round matchup?
They got a 10 because I think.
Oh.
Actually, I don't know exactly. I know they play Marquette. Okay, that's what I know. I don't remember their seed.
Fair. All right.
They play Friday in Cleveland, Marquette, New Mexico.
Interesting. Okay. Do you think we have any shot to get him on this week, or is it going to be too hard on a tournament week?
Richard?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not mad if we don't. I mean, he's busy, but we'd love to have him. We had him on last year. Was it right before the tournament started on a Sunday sermon? You reminded me.
It was the morning after they won the Mountain West Conference tournament.
That's it. Where was I going?
The connection.
Oh, the connection. Yeah, there's, even if, and Gopher women they are in the upper crust consolation tournament, correct?
The WBIT.
WBIT. Yes. They have to start on the road because there's no gym availability because of state high school basketball tournament, correct?
Yes.
So they're a 2 seed, unfortunately forced to start on the road. And we're playing who on Thursday?
Toledo.
The
Yes.
Mudhens.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, I'm assuming we're favored.
I think so. I haven't looked at the line.
What kind of pit does Toledo play in? Is there a huge home court advantage for the team?
I did hear they draw pretty well.
Is that right?
Yeah, they have a pretty solid fan base.
So, again, at least we're in one of the consolation tournaments, the better of the two, I think, on the women's side, but it's still not the same thing as the big dance. So what are we left with? We're left with sort of that same old deal. Can we find some local angles? Well, this year there's the added one of the Colorado State story.
Right.
And the possibility or likelihood, I think, that the next head coach, we can root for him, see how he does. How does he fare? Whoever they played in the conference tournament, was it Saturday or yesterday?
It was Saturday, Boise
I watched
State.
some of it. They destroyed them.
It was a clinic. I mean, they blew them out of the gym.
Yeah, exactly it. Did he say anything afterwards, like, how do you like me now? Or is he, I'm told he's not prone to hyperbole, is Nico. Is that correct?
It doesn't seem like he is. I thought his post-game interview was pretty good, though, because he was asked that, midway through the year, you weren't in any bracketology. You weren't playing very well. What was your message to the team? And Nico basically said, don't listen to it. Don't listen to it and get to work.
Get to work.
It was great.
Get back to work.
I was aroused.
So brick by brick.
Pretty much.
That kind of a deal.
Yes.
Maybe with different phrasing to it. And we look for local kids playing elsewhere. Like, how many local kids do we have at the University of Wisconsin? Is it 5?
How many are on the team?
Well,
13?
Yeah, that's about,
we've got a handful.
That's about it.
We'll say a handful. Trey Holloman at Michigan State.
I think if anybody got screwed, I thought Michigan got screwed. Michigan, who won the Big Ten tournament?
Michigan.
So their seed, I think they ended up being a 5 seed.
Yes.
No, or is it even lower?
They are a 5.
Again, I know the analytics are, but to me, if you're going to do these damn conference tournaments and they make a run in it, I know they finished kind of soft.
They did.
But I don't think that's right. I think that's too low if you win the Big Ten Conference Tournament. I think there should be some, I guess, gravitas towards being able to pull that off.
I agree with you. And I think part of the problem is the Big Ten Tournament gets done 9 minutes before they unveil the brackets. So I think a lot of times, unless there's a team that's actually playing for a spot in the draw, I think the committee just says, we got to get these to CBS so that the guys can react to them in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's just put Michigan where we've had them for the last 2 weeks, because you're right.
Let's not adjust. Yeah.
And
I hate that.
Body of work should matter too, obviously.
Yes, of course.
But there's always at least 1 or 2 of those where you come off surprised, and I think Michigan being a 5 after a really nice week, obviously, in my favorite city, Indianapolis.
I got a little more college basketball to get to. I want to revisit a story that I thought we'd already exhausted, college basketball related, but I guess not. I guess we'll revisit it one more time to try to ask, I hope, pertinent questions. And then we'll prepare for John Athletic. He is scheduled for 3:30. Luigi back with another Monday appearance at 4:15. If I have my research down, and you'll correct me, I think, on this if I don't, the Golden Gopher women's basketball team last appeared in the Big Dance in 2018.
Correct.
So that's 7 years ago. Beat the Green Bay Packers in the first round, 89-77, a 7 seed, and then got trounced by a 2 seed in the second round, 101-73. Oregon was the
I was
team.
going to say, was that Oregon?
That was Oregon.
Yeah.
So what did I say? That's 7 years ago? That's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and by the way, they're going to expand the tournament again. And if we still stay gapped, that would be quite an issue. Go for men. Last time we were here or in the tournament, 2018-19 season, correct?
Yes, Des Moines. They beat Louisville and lost to Michigan State.
Yeah, we lost in the second round. That, of course, was Richard Pitino. So you do the math on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons since we've been there. So that adds up after a while. You just feel like you're not really or you're not as enthusiastic about what else might be going on, even though we have plenty of local angles to discuss. I guess individual players who have moved on to other places. I honestly don't have any kind of feel on the men's side, really either, to be honest, about, Bozich thought it was a year where, what did he say? Maybe 8 to 10 teams he thought could win it. I don't know how wide open it is.
I'd say that's about right.
Auburn is the number 1 seed. They dropped 3 of their last 4, whatever that's worth. I don't know if that means they're done or if that just was bad luck or whatever. And in the Big Ten, I think Michigan State might go a ways. I think they have a chance to, although a lot of people are picking them to lose in their first round game.
To Bryant?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which surprised me.
Interesting. Possible.
Or maybe it was the second round game. Who would they play second round?
They would play Richard Pitino or Shaka Smart.
Oh, okay.
Marquette or New Mexico.
Then what was the other? Oh, Bozich had told us, watch out for Maryland. He thought Maryland was legit. And they end up, what were they, a 2 or 3?
They're a 4.
A 4 seed, okay.
Yeah, they're a 4 in the West. They play Grand Canyon first round.
Okay.
And possibly Nico Medved in the second round if the Colorado State Rams beat Penny Hardaway in Memphis.
Okay, so he'll get a little taste of the Big Ten, his new conference, potentially.
He could.
In Nico's
That would
case.
be the story.
I heard buyout is like it's like 3.5 or 3.6 or something like that.
To get him?
To get him?
I think it's a little less than that.
Okay.
I've
seen different numbers.
Yeah, Grim and I were just talking about that. It depends on how you...
okay.
It depends on different extension years that get added into the final years when you're talking about buying him out.
Correct.
And so I think it's about 2.9, maybe 3.1 at the most, but it all depends on how you read the contract.
I thought we'd sort of put this to bed, but I continue to hear about it and read about it. I was talking to my good buddy Chip Scoggins earlier today, and he had mentioned that he's still getting some complaints from some fellow media members about the form of dismissal for Ben Johnson. And maybe I have lost my sense of humanity. I don't know. First, I start with the obvious that we too often get way too consumed by that aspect of it. Well, how did they do it? And I say that because the truth I believe most people understand is there's no good way to dismiss anybody. It's an unseemly process. There's never going to be the perfect dismissal. Doesn't exist. There's always going to be something to say, well, could they have done this differently? Or do they have to do it this way? But for me, I am utterly and completely gobsmacked, confounded by the notion that there's some meaningful distinction that has been created in this story between firing Ben Johnson at 2 a.m. when they're returning from the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis by plane, obviously, or letting him sleep and firing him at 10 a.m. In both cases in person because he was dismissed in person. It's a bizarre wallowing that I continue to hear in this town that I don't get it. And look, I get Mark Coyle invites some of the criticism he's gotten. We've criticized him for a number of things. And I mean, the background I think most people know is, as I understand it, in order to fire him in person, he's in Indianapolis with the committee. Carmel, Indiana, I think technically is where they meet.
Yep.
He's on the NCAA basketball selection committee, right, on the men's side. So he rents a private plane to fly him from Indy, basically to meet the team or meet the head coach or the staff when they arrive there, and which in of itself I think is indicative of trying to quote unquote do the right thing. That's more than an inconvenience.
I agree.
And the idea then is what's been told to me is there was even hope, the way the committee works. I mean, they're in and out a lot, but that the idea was to try to get him back in his location, the way as anal as they are with this stuff, by like 11 o'clock or noon that day back in Indianapolis. So he does it. Now, again, I think you can make the argument that you have to find a way with your committee to say, this is too big. I got to be gone for 4 more hours, and I'm not going to leave Monday. No, what day was it? Not Monday.
That would have been Thursday.
Without also doing the presser. I'm going to get the presser out of the way as soon as I hit, after I tell Ben and we're going to have the presser. And then that way people can say I'm not running from it at all. I think if he made any mistake, that would be it. But this idea that there's there's some significant distinction. In fact, I would argue that if you're Ben Johnson and you're wondering, I'm sure, maybe you even feel like the handwriting's on the wall, you feel better trying to go to sleep for 5 hours to get back up at 10 o'clock and then be told it?
Right.
I'd rather know it. None of it's fun. I understand that on a human level, but I don't get why we've gotten so hung up on this particular part of the story. It is, I don't know if it's unique to our market. It goes back to the Coyle reputation, and so people want to pile on, and so, yeah, there you go. There goes Coyle again. And again, I'm not here to carry his water. I've ripped him a few days ago for hiring Ben. I thought it was wrong place, wrong time for Ben from the beginning. But to me, that's a completely different subject than this idea that, people have some understanding about his schedule, right? That whatever you think of Coyle, he has responsibilities. It's unfortunate timing. It so happened they're in the Wednesday game. They lose the first game. And he says, all right, I don't want to do this by phone. I don't want rumors to get out. I do want to move fast. And because that's just the way you got to do. You got to be swift. As cruel as it may seem, it's actually less cruel than letting him twist in the wind. So I'm going to meet him there. And the idea that it's going to hurt less if he gets off a plane without Coyle being there to talk to him in person, look him in the eye, presumably, or let him go home, toss and turn, tell him we need you back by the way, you need to get back at the,
right. Be at the office by
at 8:30. 8:30, so
right.
you're going to get like 2.5 hours sleep. I hope sleep well. And then we're going to tell you. Where does this come from?
I don't know.
It's actually bizarre to me that it's continues to be the issue apparently for some people that it is. I don't, because Chip had said he'd heard from a couple people that this kept coming up, and it's again, I'm not here to carry his water, I'm really not. And I'm not here to agree with Coyle on everything, but this one is again, you have to, this isn't the situation where he has all the time in the world. Whether it's fair or not, he does have other responsibilities he's supposed to be committed to. So under those conditions, to me, that has to be part of how you address this story
right.
before you lose your mind over it and say, well, yeah, ideally he stays, and ideally, I guess, if you want, he does it in the morning. I guess it's the old, it's the middle of the night, he's tired, long flight from Indianapolis, whatever. I want to know. And again, he ends up renting a private jet just so he can be back in time to say, all right, I'm just going to, I assume, meet him at the airport.
I had him come to the office.
Okay, had him. Okay,
yep.
There you go.
Which was a little bit of a tell, I think.
Right, yeah.
When people when they land back home, they're usually not all going back to campus.
That's a good point.
Especially in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he wanted to do it that night. He needed to do it that night. And that was it. It isn't, and I agree with everything you just said. I don't even really have much to add because it's just a very unique and weird circumstance that wants to do it swiftly. We said that day, whatever you do, keep or fire,
do it fast.
You need to do it quickly because there is so much hanging right now.
Yeah, there's so many ramifications to it.
There's all that stuff in the air right now. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. No, there's a couple of people saying, why rush it? No reason to fire him at the time. Why rush it? Well, what do you mean? Do you mean you think he should have been extended, or you keep him on another year, I guess I should say?
Or wait until selection
Sunday? And that's
Sunday?
a defensible position that you think he deserves another year on the basis of the NIL. I don't agree with it, but what do you mean don't rush it? Again, here's the stupidity of this story. The longer Coyle would have waited, the more he would have been ripped. Oh, this is unfair. He's twisting in the wind while all this... Did you see that national media report in ESPN?
Right.
He's twisting in the wind and hearing all this mindless speculation about his job future. What is he waiting for? He didn't wait. He flew a private plane. Well, he didn't fly it, but he's in it. A private plane back just for that express purpose while he's trying to do other duties in Indianapolis. The stuff we worry about in this town sometimes is bizarre.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic. And he's on with Dan Barreiro right now.
It is indeed that time again. KFAN brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Johnny joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. I'm going to give you some numbers. You probably have many of these or something similar because I think you've already done your celebration of this particular player's ascension in the last month and change. Here's the numbers I have that I thought were rather telling on the case of Jaden McDaniels. I went game by game this year, and I noted that in October, he finished in single-digit scoring 3 of 4 games. In November, 7 of 15. December, 7 of 13. January, 5 out of 16. And since then, Johnny, as you probably well know, February and March, the last 21 games, he has been double digits in each of them. And, of course, has scored 20 points or more, including last night, in 9 of those games. So as much as we've talked Julius Randle and celebrated the change he seemed to come back with after the injury, I assume you got to put right up there with that whatever is going on with Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I mean, I think that it is 1A and 1B in terms of the reasons for this nice little run that they're on right now, because in the first part of the season, we all saw it. There was no spacing. Ant had nowhere to go driving to the basket because teams did not have to worry about Jaden McDaniels at all, didn't have to worry about Rudy, and Julius Randle was up and down in terms of his shot making, so they could really pack the paint. Now, it's not like Jaden McDaniels has turned into Ray Allen as a three-point shooter, but he is making 36%, which is at least enough to keep you honest a little bit, but more so, he's just so dang active now. He's going to the basket, he's creating his own shots, and early on in the season, we saw so many periods of time where the offense would go into these long droughts, and they couldn't score, But McDaniels, with this new off-the-bounce game and cutting to the basket and things like that, that is kind of serving as a real slump buster.
Yes.
When the Wolves get into those offensive skids. He can just get a bucket or two, which is not something that we had seen from him very much since he entered the league. And so him being a threat offensively just really puts a whole different kind of pressure on the defense. And it's no surprise then that Ant gets a little bit better shots than he had been getting. Julius, Mike Conley, all of it. Everyone is working together in a large part because Jaden McDaniels isn't just someone you kind of have to worry about. He's someone you really have to worry about offensively.
So do we have, what's the best theory on how he has emerged? Is it simply figuring some stuff out? Is it playing him differently? Is it calling his number more? What's our explanation for? I mean, everybody's been kind of waiting on this with him, right? To say, okay, if you could get a little more out of him offensively to go with what we count on from him defensively, then you'll understand why the Wolves continue to insist we ain't trading this guy anywhere. But what's the best educated guess on how we got here?
Yeah, I think that at the start of the season, as soon as the Cat trade was announced, there was a kind of discussion internally that maybe this was actually going to be good for Jaden McDaniels from an offensive standpoint. Because if you remember, last year when Cat was out of the lineup with his injuries for a stretch of the time, Jaden got more shots and he just got more playing time or a more featured part of the offense. And it was good for him. His numbers were good, all of that. But then you put Julius Randle in there, you put Dante DiVincenzo in there. And I just think that what happened was it relegated Jaden McDaniels to just a catch and shoot 3-point guy, especially just sticking him in the corner, drive, kick, let him shoot that. And that's not his game. It's just, he is not comfortable in that. He's not a good enough shooter for that to be his specialty. And so then when Julius Randle goes out, when Dante DiVincenzo goes out, that kind of bumps Jaden up the pecking order again, and it gives him a little bit more freedom to try and create something for himself. And it caused Chris Finch to tailor a little bit more of the offense to get him more involved. Finch told us several times over the last month or so that he has to make Jaden McDaniels a priority offensively. And so I do think that he has become not just the guy that they begrudgingly get the ball to on offense, but someone that is involved in the play calls, that is part of the game plan. And I just think that's been just a huge part of his usage and why he's had so much confidence right now.
Yeah, I can't disagree. So the winning streak reached 8 last night. Is that correct?
That's right.
And then tonight you got a legitimate opponent, right? The Pacers, a better opponent, obviously, than yesterday. And we're all kind of waiting. As I understand it, we lose the tiebreaker to Golden State. If we both finish 6, we're 7, right? Because they have the tiebreaker on us. The question is, are we seeing enough vulnerability from a couple of other teams in front of both Golden State and the Wolves to say they both may be able to ascend to a place where neither is going to have to worry about playing?
Yeah, it's possible, Dan. I mean, I honestly think that it might be a better chance for the Wolves to get to 6 by either, Denver or Houston or Memphis falling out of it, as opposed to Golden State. I mean, the Warriors are just rolling right now. Now their schedule picks up here fairly soon, so maybe that will help a little bit, but they are playing so well that I don't know that you can count on the Warriors tripping up to get the Wolves to just leapfrog them. The problem is, of course, that they're still, 3.5 games behind 5 or 4. And so that's still a big gap to make up over these last 13. But, the Wolves are playing so well right now, it's conceivable that they only lose 2 or 3 more down the stretch, if that many, with how their schedule shapes up. So I still think they have a chance and a decent chance to get up into the top 6, but I do think they're going to need a little help. I mean, they're going to need one of these teams to really go on a bit of a skid here and lose, 3 of 4, 4 of 5, against stiffening schedules to get that to happen. And I don't know that the Warriors are going to be the team that help them on that.
I want to ask you, I've got some more Wolves stuff, and then we'll get into some other things as well as we continue with Johnny. If you have questions for him, hit the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. Most of you know it by now. It is indeed 64686. I'm reaching for my iPad because I want to get back to the National Basketball Association standings here on the fly. And I want to go to the Western Conference. Well, actually, both conferences. And I watched a decent amount of the Thunder. Who were they playing last night that I watched?
Detroit? Or was that the other day?
It'll come to me. That was the other day. They last night it was the Bucks. And they won comfortably. Yeah. They two starters out, and they still won comfortably. They're sitting at 56-12, okay? The Cavaliers are sitting, as you know, after having finally had their latest winning streak snapped. They're at 56-11. I don't think we've talked at all this season about either team because those are extraordinary winning percentage records. It doesn't ensure anything in terms of winning at all, but those are impressive. I mean, really impressive records. Thunder, home, 29-5, away, 27-7. Cleveland, home, 30-5, away, 26-6. So give me the Johnny Krasinski, Jonny Athletic primer on what, for this season at least, has set those two teams apart to fashion those sorts of extraordinary records.
Yeah, I mean, from the very base level, Dan, both teams play harder than you do every single night. Like, that's just every night they go in to their regular season games and they catch teams that, if you are not going to just give everything you have, you're going to get run out of the building from both of them. And so that's kind of where it all starts for both squads because neither one has won much in the playoffs any time of late. There's a hunger that is about them, and they're just dominating from sheer effort. The Cavaliers, they're doing it, but the Thunder and the Cavaliers do it a little different ways because the Cavs are so big in the front court. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they're great defensively, and then they have two small, quick guards, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and they just are very dynamic offensively. They move the ball. Kenny Atkinson, the new coach there, has done an incredible job with that. They share it, but they have many different ways they can beat you offensively. The Thunder, on the other hand, like an historically good defense with all of their perimeter defenders, Caruso, Dort, Jalen Williams, like all these guys, they get out there and they just get after you. And then they have just like the MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Every single night he is putting up 33 points on efficient shooting, with getting to the line and doing all the things that he does. They are so dang reliable with that approach that it's just consistency with the Thunder, I think, more than anything. And with Cleveland, it is just, they're more overpowering.
Yes.
And so the two best teams in the league by a comfortable margin so far this year.
Yeah, there's no question about that. We'll see if it translates, because that's always the question, and that's fair. But they're both great watches, I have to say. If you just are into, aroused by excellence, because they do it a little bit differently. But again, yesterday, Okie City, there's always another defender. There's always somebody helping out. There just seems like there are not very many defensive lapses. You mentioned Atkinson. Here's what's fascinating to me about that situation. So the Cavaliers decide we're gonna move on Bickerstaff, and almost because I think the feeling was, well, we've kind of, it's been good, but we have leveled off, right? And I think they've largely thought better offense. So they bring in a new coach, and he's been terrific. Bickerstaff, meanwhile, all right, I'll go to the next place, goes to Detroit, and they're having, by their standards, as bad as it's been for as long as it's been, historic good season. So it's kind of a feel-good story, right? Bickerstaff not only lands on his feet, he's coaching his ass off, and yet you can't argue, based on results, with the decision that Cleveland made to say that they, too, needed to go in a different direction.
Yeah, it's really kind of, I don't know that I've recalled something like this, in recent times in my covering the league, how it has worked out this way. But you fire JB, who like you said, I think he did a very good job in Cleveland, but it felt like he had taken them as far as he could, and they needed a little bit different voice, like, Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr for the Warriors. And that has worked out unbelievably with Atkinson there. But JB goes to Detroit, which was a cesspool. Monty Williams was an absolute disaster as a hire there, and he has single-handedly turned that thing around, and got them to a point where they might even get home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, the way that they're playing. It's unbelievable what the Pistons are doing. Also, local angle, good for the Timberwolves, because they have Detroit's pick as lottery protected. So they're going to be in the playoffs. The Wolves are going to get that pick in the first round in the upcoming draft, because JB Bickerstaff has done such a great job in Detroit.
A couple texts several have come in that I want to get your view on. McDaniels. Oh, here, this is a key one. Has Dilly fallen out of favor enough with Finchie, or is he just the odd man out? And could he then be a part of that nice package for KD this summer?
Yeah, he is out of the rotation right now. I won't say he's falling out of favor at all. I just don't think that this is the time and place for Dilly right now. He is a 20-year-old undersized point guard on a team that doesn't even, right now, the way that they're playing, they don't even just get to the playoffs. They want to go deep into the playoffs again. And there are not many of his ilk that are going to be getting big minutes right now. So I just think that what we're seeing from Chris Finch is that if you're going to play and you're a young player, you have to be a difference maker defensively. Yeah. And that's Jalen Clark. And even Terrence Shannon is doing enough defensively to get a few minutes here and there. And Dillingham's just not ready for that yet. And it's, he could still be the starting point guard here over the long term. I think he still has a really great shot at it, but it's just not the time and place for him. So looking forward, could he be a part of that Kevin Durant package? Sure. It's entirely possible. I do think that the Wolves would have to look at what else they would do long term at point guard if they do that. But, if you're getting Kevin Durant, maybe you do consider something like that. With Rob Dillingham, that's absolutely a possibility.
Well, as Finchie said to that point, he said right now, scoring is not a problem for us. Dillingham was, I think, when we talked about him earlier, that was an issue. Offense was a struggle, and it's the idea that he had the kind of handle that maybe he can get some stuff done and inject something into the offense. Look at our numbers: 128 last night, 118 the night before that, 115, 141, 106, 125, 126, 116. Even the loss to Utah, 116. Now, the scores are up in general around the league, but you look at all those numbers. We're 131, 123, Scoring at this point, at least, and that it's a large, likely tighten up in the playoffs some, but that's no longer the issue. So it makes sense that, all right, well, can you help us on the other end? Because we're not having much difficulty scoring right now.
Yeah, and the other part about this, Dan, is like with the way that the rotation is, Finch is playing 8 and then a 9th, somewhere in that 10-minute range.
Yes.
Maybe 5, maybe 10, a little bit more. And that spot is not a spot for Dillingham, just in terms of trying to give him a spot to be successful in. He's not a guy that is going to come in and take one shot and make it, and then you come out. He's a guy that you need to let him go play and make some mistakes, but get like longer stretches of game time to be effective and for him to get a rhythm and a lather and a feel for what's going on. And he just, I don't think he can do that in the short minutes that Finch is allotting Jalen Clark or Terrence Shannon.
So we got Pacers tonight. That's game 3 of the 5-game homestand, correct? And then we got...
That's correct, yeah.
We got 2 with the Pelicans. Was it Thursday and Saturday?
Yes.
And then we hit the road. Do we start playing better teams again?
Not really. Not really, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, they have Denver April 1st at Denver. They play the Pistons. They go to Memphis towards the end of the season in Milwaukee. But there are a lot of really, really winnable games coming up here. And I think it's Pelicans Wednesday and Friday. But the schedule is about as soft as you could ask for as you're trying to chase down a higher seed. And it's the easiest in the West of any of the contending teams right now. So it's right there for them.
We've got 13 games left. We're 40-29, by the way, which is not a bad record.
Yeah.
After all we've been through this year, they're now fashioning a legitimate record. So would you be shocked? I mean, would it be shocking for them to go 10-3 the rest of the way and finish with 50 victories?
It's not. No, I wouldn't even say. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I mean, a little bit surprised because 10-3 is a good stretch. That's a lot of winning. But given the way that they are playing right now, given the opponents that are in front of them, that would not be a crazy thing at all for them to do. And, you think about, like you said, what they have been through, all of the angst, all of the frustration that was real, that it took a while. But both Tim Connolly and Chris Finch have done a very good job of being patient with it, not panicking, and putting themselves in position, to win 50 games. Like that is right there for them still, which would be pretty remarkable given how everything started the first 2-3 months of this season.
Jonny Athletic with us, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. I probably waited too long to introduce this subject, but I do want to get your view on it as a guy who's around this league daily. So we know, and you wrote about it quite well and effectively on the Draymond suggestion that Cat was trying to avoid playing his team because he doesn't want to mess with Jimmy Butler when it was for very personal reasons that have been well established. He doubles down. He didn't double down on it, but he doesn't really own the accusation when he's called on it. I ripped him for that. I think you have as well. Then we fast forward to the game on Saturday between the Knicks and the Warriors, okay? And there's a lot of stuff going on between Draymond and Cat through the game. Cat had a great game, not a great finish. Draymond had a great finish, right? He had a couple free throws. He had a nice drive to the basket over Cat, I might add, as well. But here's what I will fully admit bugged me. It was after the game. I understand we're in an era now where everybody's going to say hello to everybody. And I get the civility of that. I don't think that's ordinarily necessarily the worst change in the game. But I can't for the life of me process how, on that occasion, you want to spend time around a guy, including Tibbs, by the way. Now, Tibbs has history with Draymond, where they're kind of hugging each other. When this has gone, I think, sort of unresolved, no one has really confronted Draymond about it publicly or privately that we know of. The lies that he perpetrated on why he said Cat misses the game, then he has the stuff during the game. Why is there not anybody who says, no, we're not going to hang around with this chumbalone. We're not going to, in this particular case, we're not going to, cold cock him. We're not going to punch him. Although sometimes I think that's the only language that, as Draymond proves, that he understands. But what am I missing that even Tibbs wouldn't say, no, I'm not. I don't have to like leer at him, or I should say sneer at him. But on the other hand, I'm not gonna be lovey-dovey with him after a game like that, knowing what I know about my player, who, by the way, did kind of stomp off the court after the game. Cat did.
Yeah, I will say, like, a lot of times I don't give a whole lot of credence to stuff like this because, someone can be performative or
yes,
it doesn't
absolutely
really mean anything in the big term. But I think this was telling to me. I did not like it as well. And maybe it's because of, my affinity for Cat or whatever. But I just remember, Dan, in the playoffs last year, Western Conference Finals, when Draymond was, just being a rube up on the TNT set and killing Rudy Gobert every chance that he could, throwing some shots at Cat.
Yes.
And there one time that the Wolves had a chance to, they won Game 5, and every winning team sends a player to the set to sit with TNT. They said, no, we're not going.
Right.
And it was because they didn't want to endorse Draymond Green. And that was the togetherness of that team. And yeah, they ended up losing in the Western Conference Finals, okay. But I thought it was a bad look for Mikal Bridges and Tibbs and all these guys to go, because here's the other thing that I know. I know that Cat hated it. I know that he did not like what Draymond said and all that. And I know it would have meant a lot to him if his teammates had his back there. And so for them to do it that way, I thought was really weak. And I thought they should have been better for their guy who literally carried them that entire game.
Yes, that whole game.
Yes, they would not be close to being in there without Cat.
Well,
yeah, he didn't play well in the last minute, but he was the only reason they were in the game.
It's a bad look. And like you said, a lot of this stuff can be performative. I'm with you 100%. But this is a very specific set of circumstances. I heard Isola make the point, and I think he's right. What Cat should have done, because I think Cat was trailing on that drive to the basket, he should have fouled him hard. He should have.
Yeah.
That's easy for me to say, but that's what really the situation called for, because you don't want to give up 2 easy points in that situation. And the idea, the added bonus of, okay, I got a little bit of a free shot at him. Good. Let's go after him a little bit. But I don't think that's Cat's nature.
It's not. And it did, like, it stunk to watch it because he had played so well. But he absolutely badly misplayed that defensive possession. Like, you can't get beat by Draymond Green turning the corner on you.
No.
There's just no way you can let that happen. And he did. He didn't move his feet. But you're right. He should have recovered and wrapped him up or fouled him from behind. Draymond would have done that to him.
100%. Probably horse-collared him. Draymond would have horse-collared him, probably.
You're right. You're exactly right. And so, yeah, that would have been the move. But you're right. It's just that is not Cat's thinking or nature or any of that. And so, he's probably going to get some more criticism for that as well, and which is too bad because he was great in that game up until that point.
Are you softening on A-Raj coming to Minnesota?
I am not. I was at the game. I was at the game last night, the Wolves game.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the stands with the kids.
Sure.
For Crunch's birthday, we did that. And I must have had 5 people come up to me and say, they're not doing this, are they? And what I'll say is, my people at the Athletic, Alec and Diana and Mike Silver, like, they're great. I know that they're having real conversations with people in the building. And so I do believe that there is real interest and debate going on internally about bringing him in. Would I do it? I wouldn't do it. I would go with JJ McCarthy and just roll that way, unless, of course, you really are worried about JJ's health.
His health,
and
right?
Him not being ready. If it's any other reason, I would say no to it. But I understand them debating. I just wonder, okay, it's straight gone long enough now. Make your decision and just move forward with it. Either way, at this point, I don't know what's kind of taken so long here.
Are you okay with Nico Medved being the next Golden Gopher men's basketball coach? Real quick.
I mean, I know that he's really well thought of here. He's got, obviously, real ties to Minnesota. He's an energetic, enthusiastic guy. And so he checks a lot of those boxes that they would need. I know that he really wanted the job the last time and went to Ben Johnson. So he's been kind of campaigning for this for a long time. He wants to be here. Those are all really good things, I think, for a Gopher program that needs an injection of enthusiasm. I did write on Twitter the other day that I think that this is a great opportunity for an NBA coach. I'm not just saying Ryan Saunders, but there's Dave Yeager, there's Sean Sweeney, there's a bunch of candidates out there. I think that you need to have a really good X's and O's guy who is used to changing rosters all the time and adapting to what you have. And so I'm intrigued by the idea of an NBA coach. It does not seem like it's going to be that. It's going to be Niko Medved, but and maybe he'll be great. But I would, that angle certainly appealed to me when I was just thinking of candidates and what could ignite a program that badly needs some ignition right now.
Thank you, Johnny. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
John Krasinski, Jonny Athletic, we call him, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Louis is a Tuesday regular, but for the second straight week, he is going to join us at about 4:15. So there will be some hockey conversation. Things not going very well in downtown St. Paul right now. Stay tuned.